Welcome back to Alyssa's Movie Takes. Today I'm going to be looking at the movie Redeeming Love, which is based on the novel by Francine and that came out in the early 90s and has maintained its popularity amongst the Christian audience for a long, long time, and it's had some crossover, partly because it's a unique book in that it takes a look at more of a steamy romance than you might expect in Christian literature, although if you have ever read Song of Solomon, you know that there is some steamy literature in the Bible as well. And now, 30 years later, they've adopted it to the screen. It came out the weekend of January 21st, and it didn't do very well at the box office. And I have a couple theories on that, but first let's just take a look at what this movie is about. So the movie is about Michael Hosea, who's a farmer in California in the 1850s during the gold rush, and you get to see opens with the desperation of these men who are panning for gold. Michael Hosea has decided to make his fortune not by panning for gold, but by feeding the masses of men who've come to make their fortune, or not, depending on who they are, most of them not. So he's a farmer, and he sees this young lady. He's been praying for a wife. He sees this young lady who is the highest paid prostitute in paradise, which is spelled Pair-dice, like gambling, paradise. But obviously it's supposed to sound like paradise as well. So he sees her. In the book, he hears the voice of God telling him, that one beloved, or something along the lines where God points out this woman that he's going to marry. So in the movie, you don't hear that, but he knows that he sees her, she's drop dead gorgeous, and he decides that he's going to marry her and that this is God's plan for his life. So at first, he starts to just kind of pay for time with her. She's a prostitute in a brothel controlled by a very controlling madam. But he doesn't actually sleep with her, and that's part of the tension, or at least it's supposed to be part of the tension there, is that he's not sleeping with her, he's just trying to get to know her, and he's trying to give her a chance to get out of this life. But she is not interested, she just thinks he's like every other guy. Eventually, she does take the offer because her life is in danger. And then the movie follows them and their life on the farm, and Michael Hosea's brother-in-law, Paul, shows up. His wife had died, Paul's wife had died about a year beforehand, and so he's a broken man, also trying to make his fortune in the gold rush and having no luck, so he shows up broken and really betrays Michael Hosea at some point, as well as kind of puts this woman, Angel, in danger. And so the story kind of follows whether or not Angel, who's the woman that Michael Hosea marries, can stay in this life that's totally different from what she's used to, which was a life she never chose, but a life that she learned to adapt in to survive. What I like about this movie is the idea that redemption can happen even from extremely traumatic circumstances. But the way that they do it in this movie feels rather flat. There are moments of extreme shock, including child trafficking, including death that you see on screen, even some of the sex scenes that don't go all the way, but give you enough to sort of fill in the blanks, right? But they don't play it enough so that your heart is engaged at the moments when it should be. This is particularly clear at the ending when there's a reuniting that happens, and there's a song that plays that's clearly about God, even though in the moment it's about human beings. And I didn't think that was a good song choice. And song choices are very important in movies because it can take you out of a moment. It was this very popular song, Rescue, by Lauren Daigle, which has her sort of smooth bayou vocals to it, but it's clearly about God rescuing you. And in the moment they put it on screen, it took me out of the story because it's way too modern, to it's just about God, not about human beings in that moment. And it made the climax totally dependent on the music in a bad way. And I noticed that throughout the movie. This was the most obvious with a song, but the score itself was very overplayed to the extent that when it came on screen, I would just roll my eyes and go, okay, there's the bad guy. Okay, this is about to happen. There's not subtlety, it was just in your face. I went into this blind. I didn't read any other reviews. I still haven't read any other reviews. And going in blind always helps me enjoy the movie a little bit more. at first I thought it was better than a Hallmark movie because it has more gravitas, because there is a nice redemption arc for this character, Angel. And even for Paul, there's a great redemption arc for him too. But it's there because it has to be there, because it was in the book, and you don't totally believe it in the movie. There's certain things that work in the book that really just fall on their face in the movie. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the gravitas of it. I enjoyed it way more than I would have a Hallmark movie, because I just dislike shallow people movies. And this didn't strike me as a shallow person movie. It struck me as something that was at least attempting to go where Christian movies haven't always gone, into the sexy realm and marital, tension, sexual tension within marriage, or, sexual tension and trying to get to know somebody. And can God's love or a human love redeem a person from such dire circumstances? It's good questions. I wish they would have done a little bit better, but overall I would watch it, simply because, one, there's not that many movies that are great for at least a female audience on the horizon. And two, while they didn't do any experimentation in trying to incorporate faith into a romance, and they could have, had they gone in the direction of trying to implement God's voice, or trying to characterize God in a way that isn't just somebody sitting in a church or somebody looking at a Bible, I think they could have served themselves very well. So looping back to the box office and why it didn't do well. So probably struck Christian audiences as too risque, and probably struck non-Christian audiences as too flat and boring, and a saintly character and unbelievable. So it didn't do very well, which is I think it's a shame, because I would like to see more movies that are at least a little bit pushing the envelope, but maybe Christian audiences don't want to see things that push the envelope. And our pushing the envelope is never going to be what secular audiences consider pushing the envelope. They're going to think it's tame. But if you get a chance to see it on streaming, I would encourage you to do so, even if you want to fast forward some of the flashback scenes that just start to take too long, or if it turns you off, because there is a plot line about a prostitute that follows her from how she started to how she ended, really, with that career. So it stars Abigail Cowen as Angel and Tom Lewis as Michael Hosea. It also includes Logan Marshal-Greene as Paul, who's the brother-in-law of Michael Hosea, and Famke Janssen as the Duchess, who's the madam for Angel. So that's my take on Redeeming Love. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below, or if you're going to see it in movie theaters or on streaming, and I will talk to you soon.